Well, so today we are going to talk about the backup and site recovery. There are two things when you create a workload or when you have an application in the cloud or in your organization, it is important to back up your data, okay, and also configure the site recovery. Okay, so backup means what? Backup is nothing but backing up your files and folders or the database for any kind of unplanned events so that you can restore your data from the backup. So imagine you have an application server and you want to take some data backup of it. You take the backup and store it in the backup storage area. If in case any server crashes or if in case any data got deleted or any misconfiguration happened, you can go to the previous successful backup and you can restore the data from that recovery point or the restore point. Okay, that is called as backup. We have another option called DR. Okay, that is the entirely different. That is the DR is nothing but backing up your entire workloads and storing it in the DR region, and you will make use of it whenever there is a actual entire region is going down. That is called as DR, or we will call it as site recovery. But in the Azure, we have a service called Recovery Service Vault. It's very simple. In cloud, it is very simple. Backup is very simple. You have a service called Recovery Service Vault. You create a Recovery Service Vault and you can create the policies. Okay, I want to take my database backup, my application backup, or my data backup. You can define so and so servers should get automatically trigger their backup every day after the business, maybe 10 p.m. in the night. Automatically all this set of servers should have the backup. What level of backup you want? Full day, daily full backup, or daily weekly full backup, and daily differential or incremental backup. You can define whatever the backup strategies you would like to deploy. So the policies will work for you. You just have to go to the recovery service vault, go to policy and see how many servers have been added to the policy, how many got triggered the backup, and how many got successfully completed, and how many got failed. Everything can be managed in the recovery service vault. But in case of traditional, you have multiple other applications. You have Veeam backup, you have Commvault on-premises backup, okay, you have Simplicity backup. There are so many backup options are there. Okay, everything is license based only. Okay, but there you have to set up a tool, you have to install the application, you have to connect the storage, data stores and all, and then keep the backup in the real time environment. But in the cloud it is not like that. Everything can be stored in the Azure Recovery Service Vault. It has got enormous amount of free space available, and you can store the data how much ever GB or terabytes you wanted. It is automatically manageable, and we just have to pay for what we consume. Okay, and if you are restoring whatever data you will read, no, for that only you have to pay, otherwise no additional charges there. That is about the backup. Using the same recovery service vault, we can even configure the site recovery. So now I am going to talk about the site recovery. Site recovery means it is nothing but it's a service you can deploy to configure your critical applications, okay, replicated to the disaster recovery region or your secondary region. So in my previous example, I told you an example of facebook.com. There you had application layer, middleware layer, database layer. The entire setup you will replicate in the DR region, which is your secondary region, and all the data, database, everything will be there as a copy, and that will be real time synchronization will happen. If in case the primary region goes down due to some disaster activities, it can be your earthquake, or it can be a tsunami, or any fire accident happens, the entire workloads are there in the war happens, the entire workloads, one copy is there in the your primary region. See, at a time you cannot face both the things, right? So one copy you keep it in India, another copy you keep it in Western Europe. So at a time in India and Western Europe you cannot expect the war. At a time in both the regions you cannot expect the earthquake. At a time in both the region you cannot expect any kind of natural disasters, correct, right? That is why this site recovery will be useful. Once you configure this site recovery, your critical applications will be synchronized to the DR region, and in case of any disaster happens, you can call out the DR from that secondary region or the primary region, and your business critical applications can be run from there, and that is called as BCDR, business continuity and disaster recovery. So your business will be keep on continue even though there is a disaster happens in your primary region. You can call out the DR from secondary region, that is called as site recovery. Okay. Then this Azure backup protects the data on premises and cloud both. You can install the agents and you can even configure the data, backup on the cloud servers as well as the on premises servers also. Even the Azure site recovery also, it will protect your cloud as well as on premises. You can even synchronize some business critical workloads which are there in the on premises by having some agents installed. You can synchronize the data to the cloud. Okay, not from the cloud to the on premises, but from the on premises to the cloud you can synchronize your data, and you can call out the DR whenever there is a requirement is there. So these are the two differences. This is the two things about the backup and the site recovery. Okay, the benefits of these things, the Azure backup, it is automatic storage management. I told you, right, if you plan the on premises, you need to plan. Say for example, you are keeping your data, the retention policy is there. A daily backup you are going to keep maybe 3 months, weekly backup you are going to keep 6 months, yearly backup you are going, monthly backup you are going to keep 12 months, and yearly backup you are going to keep maybe 5 years. And the data amount of data is getting increased. You have to consider that point also. Every day how much GB is getting increased, the application data. Even though you are deleting the old data, old backup data, purging the old backup data, you still, the business is growing now. Maybe today 100 users are there, tomorrow 150 users are there, day after tomorrow 200 users are there. Okay, so all these things are there. So you have to consider that also. Considering that, you need to plan your storage. Oh, maybe per day if I use 5 GB, per month 150 GB, per year I need to have 150 into 12. So you need to plan your storage accordingly, and you have to procure as and when it's required. There is a headache of managing the storage also. But in case of cloud, it is not like that. It is unlimited storage will be there, and it will be automatically scaling will happen. You don't need to worry about the free space, how much free space is left out. That is the headache of Microsoft or the service provider. They will make sure, they will take care of all those things. You don't need to worry about the free space and all. It is unlimited and auto scale automatically happens. Today you need 1 terabyte, you can use 1 terabyte. Tomorrow you need 1 petabyte, you don't need to worry, you can use 1 petabyte or 10 petabyte, 100 petabyte, anything can be used. And multiple storage options will be there. Like where you want to store your data. You want to store the data in the Western Europe, same AZ1 availability zone 1, or you want to have the data, a copy of your data kept in multiple geographical regions, so that disaster happens means your data will be safeguarded. LRS means it is locally redundant storage. It replicates your data 3 times in a storage scale unit. All the copy of the data will be existed in the same region with low cost option and prevent from local hardware failure. LRS is nothing but it will only give you the local hardware redundancy. Imagine you kept the data in one storage box. Due to some power issues, the storage got burnt. So your one copy, another 3 copies are there in the same storage scale set unit. Different hardware but same storage scale set unit, which shares the different power system, which shares the different network system connectivity, that is called as LRS. This is a cheaper option. Geo means it is geo redundant storage, GRS we call it as. It replicates the data to the secondary region, which is an Azure peer region. Means if you keep your data, say for example your Western Europe, that is your primary region, and there is a peer region will be there, maybe India or Northern Europe. So when you take the backup, one copy of the data will be kept in the secondary region also. It is a little bit expensive solution, okay, and it will give you the regional outage issues also, regional redundancy. If the entire Western Europe submerged also, you have your data in the North Europe or maybe in India region, that is called as geo-redundant. And unlimited data transfer, guys, you don't need to worry about that. No charges for the data transferred. The cost is associated only with the inbound or import. I told you, right? Whenever you read the data, then only they will charge you, and that charge they will mention as egress. Egress and ingress, two things are there. Egress means reading something. Ingress means writing something. Ingress means you are writing the data to the storage. Egress means you are reading something outside or you are exporting something outside, that is called as egress. So these charges also will be there. Okay, when you download the data only then you will have the charges, but you can store n number of data. There is no charge for the writing. Anyway, the storage cost is there, but no cost for writing because you will use the bandwidth. To copy the data from your Bangalore location to the Western Europe region, there are two things are associated. One is the data transfer, the charges, the internet or bandwidth charges. Another one is once the data reaches the Western Europe, there you will occupy some storage place. That is, two things are there. But what Microsoft gives you, Microsoft will not charge you for transferring the data from your India to Western Europe. They will charge you to keep the data in the Western Europe. And some disaster happens, that time you want to call out the data from Western Europe, Northern Europe to back to the application usable region, that time they will charge you. Okay, that is called as egress. And whatever data transfer happens, right, it is end-to-end encrypted. You don't need to worry. The data, even Microsoft will not know what data you are going to transfer in it or store in it. Everything is end-to-end encrypted, and you will have a passphrase or key to decrypt it. Even if you miss the passphrase, even you cannot see what data you have kept inside it. So that much of security Microsoft manages. And application consistent. So imagine you have an application called Facebook. The application was perfectly working till Friday evening, and Friday evening you notice that you did a patching activity and you didn't check the application. You just started the server and you went off. Saturday was holiday, Sunday was holiday. Monday when business starts, everybody will be started using the application, and 1 or 2% raises their hand stating the application is behaving weird. The application was perfectly fine during Friday night when we left the office. Then you notice that there is a change happened. What is the change? You have installed the patches, patching activity happened. Maybe the patch installation damaged some application, and now what you have to do, you have to restore the application back to the application consistency, mean the application working condition. Then the backup will support the application consistent restore also. And about the retention period, if you take the backup, it is left to you. Would you like to keep it for retain for 1 week, 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, or you want to permanently keep it for 100 years or 50 years? Yes, the longer retention policy is also available. Microsoft does not bring any kind of hard rule stating that you cannot keep the backup more than so and so years. No, that rule is not there. Okay. Now some components are there with respect to the Azure backup. There are 4 types of components. One is Mars agent, system center DPM, okay, and Azure backup server, Azure IaaS VM backup. This Mars agent is there, right? That Mars is nothing but it's Microsoft Azure recovery service agent. If you install this agent, you can back up the data from your on-premises. I told you, no, Azure will support you on-premises backup also. Okay, so you can install an agent. You see here, somewhere I have an agent here. See, Microsoft Azure backup. If you install the agent like this, you can back up the data, whatever data you wanted to back up from your local machine to the Azure cloud region. Okay, you can even back up your on-premises data to the Azure recovery service vault using an option called Mars agent, Microsoft Azure recovery service agent. And you don't need to have a separate backup servers when you have installed the Mars agent. Okay, it will support on premises also, and you can take maximum 3 times. You can define early morning one time, after the business one, during the business one time, and after the business one time. Okay, you can define in which recovery service fault the backup has to be happened. That is using the Mars agent. So basically, Mars agent is nothing but it's an agent which will be available in the Azure. You can install it on the on-premises servers, and it will support backing up your on-premises workloads and the data in the Azure recovery service vault. Okay. Then the system center DPM is there. It's a VMware based virtual machine. Okay, you can just install one server and configure it as a DPM. Okay, and you can back up your VMware estates and all. Okay, and you can even have a locally attached server along with the recovery service vault. If you want to store the data locally, you can create a server separately, or if you want to store the data in the RSV, you can put it in the RSV also. Then this Azure backup server. Okay, so using the Azure backup server, you can even take the data whenever you wanted. There is no limitations. But in the previous case, Mars agent, you had 3 times. But in the Azure backup server, there is no limitations. You can trigger n number of times, no problem, and all the jobs will be running parallelly. You can use recovery service vault. You can back up your files, folder, VMware, both. VMwares, everything can be stored. This data can be stored in local storage as well as the Azure recovery service vault. That is called as Azure backup server. Okay. The third one is there, Azure IaaS VM backup. So in all the other cases, you need to have the agent, but in the Azure IaaS, you don't need to have the agent. Okay, so you don't need to have the agent. You just have to onboard the server. Without the agent, you can onboard the server. Okay, you can trigger n number of backups. Okay, and the data should be stored only in the recovery service vault, and we use normally Azure IaaS VM backup only. I am going to show you how to configure that using the recovery service vault. Okay, and if you ask me how to take the backup in cloud, sir, so first and foremost thing, I already told you, to take the backup or to configure the site recovery or the disaster recovery in the cloud, you need to create the recovery service vault. In order to create the recovery service vault, you should create a resource group first, because resource group is the toppest hierarchy under the subscription. So you have tenant, under the tenant subscriptions, one tenant can have multiple subscriptions. Say for example, you have started a company, say for example, it's a Coca-Cola. So Coca-Cola is a tenant, it has got a tenant. Under that you have multiple subscriptions. Maybe subscription 1 for production servers, subscription 2 for non-production, subscription 3 for test workloads, subscription 4 for any other regional requirement, PaaS services, SaaS services, like that. One tenant can have multiple subscriptions. Under that you have resource groups. Resource groups are very, very important, because you are going to bundle your resources together in a container called resource group. So to place the recovery service vault, you need to create a resource group, and then you need to go to recovery service vault, create the backup policy, and according to your requirement, like would you like to create a VM backup or a database backup or a HANA backup, a file backup, you can create the policy and you can schedule every day night 10 a.m. I should trigger the backup. What kind of backup you wanted? Every Sunday full backup, weekdays differential backup, and you can mention the retention period. Daily backup, keep it for 30 days, weekly full backup, keep it for maybe 6 months, monthly full backup, keep for 12, yearly backup, keep it for 5. You can mention every day first Sunday's backup, every month first Sunday of every month, whatever backup you are going to take, keep it for 12. Every January first backup, keep it for 5 years. Like that you can define the retention policy and enable the policy, and policy will run for you. It will make sure it triggers every day, take the backup. If any error is there, it will send a notification or a ticket will get created. You can start working on it and resolve the issue. And purging means deleting the old backup. I told you daily backup 30 days. Today is 30th. Say for example, today is 1st. you are going to take the backup. Next month 31st, the backup which you have taken on 1st of September will be removed, because you have defined the retention policy daily backup 30 days. So after 30th day, the 31st day, your very first backup will be removed. Okay, that is how it is. This is for the backup. And for the site recovery, the same fashion goes. To take the backup, you will create the recovery service vault in the same region. Say for example, in the Western Europe, if you are configuring the servers, you have to create the recovery service vault in the Western Europe region only for backup. But for site recovery, you need to create a recovery service vault not in the primary region, but in the secondary region or the DR region, because you are going to safeguard the application in the DR region. Something goes wrong to my primary region, then I should have an option of recovering or calling my business continuity from the secondary region. That is why you have to create the recovery service vault in the secondary region, and you have to make sure the connectivity is there, and you have to identify what all application and the database has to be replicated, configure the replication. Once the replication is configured, do a test failover, whether my configuration is working perfectly fine or as expected. You can test the failover and making sure, yes, my configuration is correct. Once the testing is done, when you get the confidence, yes, my configurations are correct, then you can do the cleanup failover. Then when you do the test cleanup, what happens? One copy of the server from the primary region will be getting created in the secondary region, and the naming convention will be changed. Say for example, you have a VM called VM01. When you do the test failover, it will create VM01-test. It will create one copy of the VM in the secondary region. I will show you tomorrow. Okay. And when you do the cleanup failover, whatever newly built VM, the VM which got created automatically from the site recovery, that gets cleaned up, removed, deleted. And then actual failover. Whenever there is a disaster happens, log into the Azure portal, go to the recovery service vault which is there in the secondary region, click on the actual failover, then all the application whatever was pointing out to the primary region will be redirected to the secondary region. Then you have to call out the DR and make the DNS changes and all to point the application to the right application and DB servers. Then you can fail back once the maybe after 1 month or 2 months, once everything is okay at the primary region, you can fail back from your secondary region to the primary region. That is called as fail back. When you are failing back, there are two things that you have to consider carefully. One is RTO, another one is RPO. RTO means it is recovery time of objective. RPO means recovery point of objective. Means how much time you need to call out the DR or fail back from secondary to primary, that is called as RTO. How much time? Recovery point means how much data you are going to lose, that is called as RPO. Lesser the RPO, okay, lesser the RTO, that's a very good solution. So you should not have interruption for your business. That is the main intention, right? So instead of losing the entire business, you are okay to compromise for 2-3 hours to call out the DR. Correct. Now imagine if you don't have business continuity only, you will be bankrupted. Correct. Now your data is gone, your shares will be going down, you will lose your money, lose your customers. It's a damage for your business. Correct. Now once you selected the RTO and RPO, once the application is failed back to the primary region, you will do some application testing. The application will do the application testing if everything is correct or not, everything is up to date or not. Then you can do commit. Once you do commit, you cannot change the RPO or RTO. So before you do the commit, you have to ensure the application is working as expected. Everything is perfectly fine and I don't need to review my application again. Then you have to do the commit, because once you do the commit, you cannot change the RPO and RTO. If you don't do the commit, you can change. While doing the application, you notice some issue, then you can search some other RPO, some other point you can take, and from there you can do the restoration. So once you do commit, you cannot make any changes. That's about the steps for the site recovery. Okay. And you see here, Azure Site Recovery is a disaster recovery as a service. They call it as DRAS. DR as a service or disaster recovery as a service. It is a service offered by Azure for use in cloud and hybrid cloud architecture. You can see here, replicate VMware VMs and physical server to a secondary data center also. You can even see here the sources, what all sources can be used in the disaster recovery. You can on-premises VMware, vSphere VMs and even physical servers also can be replicated using this Microsoft Azure Site Recovery, and ASR means it is Azure Site Recovery, and you are going to create in the cloud. Okay. See, this is the configuration of a master target server, means all the data will be staged one place to another place. There they will store it in a cache storage account, and then they will synchronize the data to the actual servers. Okay. And Azure, the data, the replication process makes sure the copies are in sync to the DR region from the primary region. The same thing I told you. It will make sure all the data which is there in the primary will be getting synchronized to the secondary region. Azure Site Recovery ensures that the data is unable to state after the failover. Usable state, sorry. Azure Site Recovery ensure the data whatever you have synchronized, it's a usable state after the failover. Once you, as soon as your failover happens, the data will be usable. Imagine you created a latest business application or latest business user in the primary region, and that got immediately synchronized to the secondary region. And if you call out the DR, the same accurate data will be there in the secondary region. That is what they are talking about here. And protecting your workloads for any disaster supports, protecting your critical workload for any disaster means critical business critical or finance related applications, money minting applications, you can protect in the DR region. It supports on-premises to Azure and Azure to Azure. Okay. On-premises means physical to Azure, VMware to Azure and Azure to Azure, means you can synchronize your on-premises application to the Azure as well, or within the Azure from one region to another region also you can do the configure the DR. And it is well suited for the hybrid DR setup. Means hybrid means, say for example, some of your old applications, business applications which are there in the on-premises, maybe physical servers or VMware estate you will have, you can even store them in the cloud. Imagine if it is not supporting the cloud, then you may need to buy the same set of servers and find a data center in some other region, synchronize them. It is very hectic job, correct na? So that is why this Azure Site Recovery came, okay, and that is usable. It is widely usable service actually. See, this is the same thing, pictorial representation. In the Azure region 1, if you look at here, so let me see here. See here in the region 1, you have high availability. So region 1 is the copy of the region 2. See here, region 2 is the copy of region 1. Public IP, here is also public IP. Internal load balancer, here is also one internal load balancer, but ASR. ASR means it is Azure Site Recovery. Whatever things are there configured for DR, they will be like -DR or -ASR. Both are same. ASR means Azure Site Recovery, -DR means disaster recovery. Okay. See, two web servers are there, web 1 and web 2. The same copy will be here, web 1 and web 2. See, one load balancer is there, application 2, the same thing here, application 1, application 2. See, here you have database 1, database 2, and this within this database are actually synchronized are there, within the availability set is there. The same copy is also here, the replication is happening and availability set is there. And if you look at here, all this data stores in this disk, and the entire disk is replicating to the DR region, and within this disk all these application servers, database, web servers, everything is stored, and you are accessing the application using the traffic manager. So traffic manager, it is a DNS based load balancer. Okay, how it will be there? Today you are in India. If you face www.facebook.com, if you open, if you are in India, it will go to the India server based on the DNS. Tomorrow you are in Norway, you there in the Norway you browse www.facebook.com, it will not send the request to the India server, it will send to the Norway server. So based on the geographical region, it will identify the server and send it. So here what happens here, you are using a traffic manager or a public load balancer. Since this applications are failed over and we have configured the DNS, okay, and the application is not available in the region 1, then it will go to the region 2. Simple, that's all. Okay, this is the overall pictorial representation to make you understand. DR is nothing but it's a copy of the servers or the workloads of critical workloads of the primary region in the secondary region. If in case any complete disaster happens in the primary region, you can continue your business from the DR region, that is called as BCDR. And BCDR can be configured using Azure Site Recovery. Azure Site Recovery available in Azure Recovery Service Vault. Okay, that's it on the theory. Any questions, guys? If no questions, I think we are good. Thank you all for joining. I will stop the recording and I'll take the questions.